speaker is a researcher of games and play. He heads the Gamification Research Network. He's visiting professor at the Playable Innovative Technologies Lab of Northwestern University. He's an associate at the international design agency Hubbub. He's visiting us from Tel Aviv. Please welcome Sebastian Deterding.
My talk today, I want to talk about hacking shyness. That was actually not my title. My title was Embarrassment and Play, and they changed the title on me, and then it's sort of, okay, now I have to deal with that thing. Hacking shyness, designing for social interaction. We've talked a lot about yesterday, right? The word embarrassment came up over and over again as something that keeps people from engaging. And that's basically as a kind of summary of yesterday, somewhat a response to that, my attempt to tease out some of the kind of design principles and patterns you find across different social arenas for making people more comfortable at places, for reducing embarrassment. And why am I talking about this? Well, to start with some confessions, this is somewhat kind of auto-psychotherapy on the stage, because back during my high school years, really, I have always been a very, very shy person, right? At every kind of party or mingling, when I was invited to these parties, you know, this was typically me, sitting somewhere in the corner or standing somewhere awkwardly on the wall, not engaging with people. That was before smartphones gave you a nice alibi for doing this and saying, no, I totally have to do this thing here right now. Or if there was any dancing party, right, this was usually me, not in the picture, somewhere in South Center, the only person sitting on a chair going, I would like to dance, but I'm mortally afraid to dance. I won't dance. Yeah, the others dance. I can't. When Melina yesterday came on stage, right, classic stage magician, that's actually one of the situations that I was most mortally afraid of. One of my good friends is actually a stage magician. He always invited me over to him seeing other colleagues of his, and I would usually not go there because I thought, okay, when I go there, at a certain point in time, that stage magician will ask this naughty, naughty question. Can I ask a member of the audience on stage? Right? And then they hunt for prey. They come down into the audience in that moment, right? Your hair raises up and you go, you know, please, not me, not me, not me, you know, pick the other guy, no, right? Okay, I won't call on you, I promise, just show of hands, who feels like that typically in these kind of events? Okay, awesome. So this is not just me, thank you, wonderful. Right? And today I look at that as a design problem, as a designer, because I see that, you know, this embarrassment keeps us from engaging. This here is a little exogame prototype that a colleague of mine, Chet Toprak in Melbourne, has built. It's basically a little game where you can't see it down there, but it's a kind of a projection of floating water, and the idea is as long as there's a float projected on the water, you can stand. The moment there is not a float, you have to pull yourself up, right, till the float comes back again, and then you let yourself down. And right, fun little exogame. For some reason, Chat thought it was a beautiful idea to put that thing into public trams. And apart from the security issues, right, tram goes to the left, apart from the security issues, people didn't play it. And then they interviewed people why they didn't play it. People said, oh, that's quite embarrassing, right, in the subway to do this kind of thing. So, right, it keeps us from engaging. It also keeps us in the status quo, right? Because embarrassment is all about social norms of propriety, what's okay, what's proper to do. And if that's something that inhibits you, right, it inhibits you from questioning the society and the kind of norms that keep you in check. And it also basically keeps you from joy, right? I wanted to dance, but I was way too embarrassed to dance, and I would have enjoyed dancing. So how come, right? If it has all these negative consequences, how come that there is such a thing like embarrassment? How does embarrassment work? And it turns out, for once, dead white male sociologists do have something to say about the matter. So I would like to turn to one, W.I. Thomas, from the Thomas Theorem, if you know that one of his early books. And Thomas basically made the argument, the same argument that Johanna made yesterday about, you know, magic circles, different kinds of social situations that have different kinds of rules and norms of propriety, how you behave in the role of an audience member in a presentation or in the role of a speaker, right? These are different kinds of situations of our social reality that we learn, and we are basically socialized into these norms by our parents and peers without having any other options to differently, right? Or otherwise, if you're a kid sitting at church and you really want to leave and you rattle with your feet or you lay down, right, your parents tell you, behave yourself. And the curious thing is, at a certain point, in your socialization, a weird looping happens. You start to internalize these scolding voices of your parents and of your peers and their evaluations and judgments of your proper or improper behavior. Right? That's why people call embarrassment or shyness self-conscious emotions. There are emotions, feelings that you develop about your own self as you are reflecting about your own self. And there are also social emotions, because these feelings, as I said, these emotions that you have, they come from the value judgments, from the judgings of others that you internalize. This is something another dead white male sociologist, Charles Holden Cooley, put into his beautiful term of the looking glass self, right? He said, pride, shame, embarrassment, they do not come from us thinking about ourselves, but they come from us thinking about how others think about ourselves, right? What if the others see me in this situation? And whether they might value or devalue what I'm doing. And that's what pride, shame, embarrassment comes from. And that is the reason why, in situations like age 3, right, you dance with abandon. You don't care because you don't have these internalized self-conscious emotions. And you proudly show, look what I've drawn. And then age 13, you go, no, don't look at my pictures, this is terrible. Although you're a great, could actually draw quite nice pictures. Right? And that's why a lot of us people, once they enter school and they compare themselves with others and they get value judgments from teachers, stop drawing, basically, and tell themselves, and as I can't draw. And at the bottom of this, right, at the bottom of these self-conscious emotions, as Thomas Sheffers put it, is, as he put it, a threat to the social bond. At the bottom of this is, I imagine how the others value or devalue me, and that triggers a fear in me that I might lose connection to them, right? And the very basis, my parents leave me, or my friends leave me, and I'm alone in the world. Right? Shame and embarrassment at the bottom have this fear that because the others think poorly of me, they will leave me. So to summarize that kind of thing to you now, what is it that embarrassment is, right? Embarrassment is basically a negative emotion, right? And blushing and everything that comes if we are aware, if we become aware, that others become aware, that others see, that we do something that is improper or incompetent for the given situation, right? If my microphone suddenly slips, or if I start to do ministry of silly walkings or stuff like that. And then I imagine how they might devalue me as a result of that. And that imagine that they might disconnect from me, that I might lose social connection, that people might think poorly of me, leave me. That is kind of the origin of, and the kind of the mechanisms, the conditions for embarrassment. And shyness is basically our anxiety, our fear that we come into a socially novel situation where we don't know the rules and we don't know if we have the skills to deal with that, like me sitting there in the dancing hall because I couldn't dance very well. And standing there, that we might embarrass ourselves, and therefore we don't engage, right? We try to avoid this risk of embarrassing ourselves. But if all that is the case, then the interesting question for me becomes, well, why do things like these work? Which is the global no pants day, right? Going to a subway wearing no pants, which started in 2002 by Improv Everywhere in New York and is now a global phenomenon, right? Where all across the globe, same point in time, people come in no pants into the subway, right? Very improper and embarrassing. Or things like these, right? Festivals like ICFest or Play Public, where game designers come together and play very weird games in public without being kept by embarrassment from doing so. You play games like Turtle Wushu, where you place little plastic turtles on your hand and then you strike ninja poses and then you try to hit the other turtle away while keeping your turtle balanced in the middle of the street, right? And people come looking at you. Why does this work? So that was kind of my working question. With that question, I looked at these situations and say, okay, what is it here? What are the kind of patterns that help mitigate this embarrassment? And as a little bonus activity, if you want to, you can ask yourself, how did the organizers here at Alibis of Interaction, because I think they did a marvelous job at that, employ some of these patterns right here, right? Or how did Melina in her talk yesterday employ some of these patterns? So here's the first pattern I found, the first principle. ICFest, Play Public, the No Pants Day, or the event here, they are festivals. And festival is a social situation with the norm that it is a transgressive situation, right? In festivals, it's normal, it's okay, it's actually expected of you to act out of bounds as one acts out of bounds in festivals, right? If you're at a German carnival and you don't get bloody pissed, right, you will feel the full pressure of social expectations and norms weighing down on you because you're not acting out of bounds as expected for a festival. And these festivals, like this event here, come with very clear framing information at the start, telling you, what is this situation? How am I to behave here? Where and when does this start and end, right? What's the magic circle boundaries here? And who belongs to this situation, who doesn't belong to this situation, right? Play Public, one of this festival, this was a literal sign they put in front of the thing saying, careful, festival going on here, right? So don't wonder if there are weird people doing weird things, right? The same thing that happens here, with all the props and decoration. This basically gives you the physical signaling, right? This here is a kind of, carnival costume party thing like. But that kind of subconsciously signals that kind of framing to you. And one thing that carnivals and these festivals often do to help us overcome rules is that they reverse rules and exaggerate certain behaviors. Classic caricature principle, right? Like bad taste party. Come as badly dressed as you can, right? So nobody can blame you for looking bad at that, right? Because that was the whole point. You behave situationally proper if you dress badly. And then if you actually look good at that, right, that only reflects positively on you. So caricature, reversal. The second principle is you have to model the behavior. You have to welcome people in, and the best way to do that is to start by doing whatever you want people to do yourself. Right? If you don't know this, this is Antanas Mockus, former mayor of Bogota at the point when he took on his job as mayor. It was one of the most crime-ridden cities in the world, and he tried to rebuild civic culture, basically people standing up for civic-mindedness, politeness in streets. First thing he did, he dressed up as super citizen and walked out in the streets with that. And did lots of other interesting things, like sending mimes on the streets that would ridicule drivers who were driving poorly, right? So basically what he was doing, he's modeling the behavior. He's standing himself out saying, I'm embarrassing myself here. I'm putting my own self on the line. So if I do that, you can do the same, right? What he's basically doing is what ethologists in play call a play bow, right? If animals invite you to play, like dogs, they make a bow. A play bow. Humans smile, right? Play smile is the invitations that we give. What that basically says is I make myself vulnerable. I put myself in a vulnerable situation. If you want, you can lash out of me. And by making myself vulnerable to you, I signal to you that I trust you and that this is a trustworthy, safe situation because I would take the first hit if something happens. So you're safe to come in. Now, a first person doing this kind of play bow, doing this kind of modeling the behavior is nice, but it's not enough. What we also need, and what these festivals give you, like here, is normalcy through numbers, right? I'm sure a lot of you have seen this wonderful, leader and follow video on YouTube where one person starts dancing and a lot of people start flocking. And the phenomenon you see there is what I would like to call an embarrassment cascade, right? It's like on a party, as you described, right, before 12 o'clock, nobody dances. Why? We're all standing around in a circle, the dance floor, whipping with our feet, going, I would like to dance, but damn, I'm not the first person to step in the dance floor, right? So you need somebody with a very low embarrassment threshold who says, I want to dance, jump out on the floor, start dancing. And then a second person with a slightly higher embarrassment threshold who says, yeah, that's cool, I can totally join, and I'm not alone, right? Not all eyes are focused on me. The eyes are also diverted on the other guy. And then at a certain point in time, a third person comes in with an, even higher embarrassment threshold. 2 people? Sure, right? This starts to become a group. The thing that goes on there, right, apart from the fact that attention is more and more split up between different people, is, as I said, there is normalcy in numbers, right? If there is enough people around you doing the same thing, they say, this is a situational norm we as a group have. This is okay within this group to do. If you're a lone cosplayer in the street, you feel awkward. If you're like me, leaving a LARP in your LARPing costume to go to McDonald's in a team of 12, you're an awesome in-group that have an awesome in-group experience and enjoy the others going, oh, these are crazy guys, right? And you can also do this through material traces of others. It doesn't have to be necessarily living people in front of you. This is from an exhibit about love by Nina Simon, one of the great participatory designers that we have out there. What they basically did in the museum is to have this white wall. What's the craziest thing you've ever done for love? Now, if you think about it, imagine this would be a blank wall just with pens hanging in front of that. You're the first audience member standing in front of this wall. We have 50 people around you in the audience, and you write down the craziest thing you did for love, right? Very awkward. So what they did is they pre-filled parts of the wall with their own answers. So first moment you come in, you say, oh, other people have done that already, right? And as I said, it diverts attention from you, which leads me to the next principle. Help me feel unseen by disapproving eyes. Right? If others seeing me, being aware of me, devaluing me is the cause of embarrassment, if you shield me from the idea that other people who disapprove of me see what I do, that reduces embarrassment. That's why a lot of these festivals happen in kind of, safe, closed spaces, secluded spaces, diversion, don't go here, where you're only among familiar peers. That's what works so well at Punch Drunk's, Sleep No More or The Drowned Men or so, where they want audience to be more active, walk around, follow the actors, which is a very uncommon role for an audience member. So they give the audience masks. Right? So you feel unseen. This is not me. People don't know who I am when I do this. And at The Drowned Men in London, I've seen audience members with masks starting to dance on a bed and jump around on mattresses to the music because the masks worked so well for them. Here's another beautiful example in the Museum of Play in Rochester, where they had this little dance lab installation. And what it basically does is you have this little chamber, you have this light, this camera, it would capture your body shape, and then it would display it back to you with kind of some weird psychedelic effects in the background. Problem is, people absolutely did not use it. So they changed the room, and suddenly people used it. And here's how they changed the room. Right? Can you see what they did? It's all dark around. They built additional walls and darkened the room around that so that you felt unobserved. There's just this little door where light comes through, but mostly you were in a shielded room where all of your attention is focused on the screen and the movements you make. So you feel unseen, you feel in this shelter. And so you can get completely in the loop, you can get lost in the interaction with that image of yours. Which is yet another principle, right? If my awareness of the other's awareness is what leads to embarrassment, then if you can keep my attention so focused on something that I don't have free, cognitive cycles to think about the other people, that also reduces my embarrassment. That's why, games like Dance Dance Revolution work in public, where you get so in the flow and in the zone interacting with the machine that you forget that the others are looking at you. And the others, anyhow, are not looking at you because their attention is also focused on that screen in front of them. Another principle, the chief principle of this conference, we heard it over and over again, give me an alibi. This is what Irving Goffman has called a reframing of the activity, right? There might be certain social roles for how I should behave properly in public, but if you give me a nice higher purpose for what it is I'm doing, suddenly a lot of things are okay for that higher purpose because that higher purpose is the noble thing I do, right? None of these guys would typically run naked in public, I would guess. But because this is the Santa Speedo print for HIV/AIDS in Albany, New York in winter, right? So basically all the proceeds of this marathon go to an HIV foundation, suddenly you can do for that, right? Because you're embarrassing yourself for a noble cause. That's one of the alibis you have. Another beautiful alibi are kids, right? I don't play with Legos, but I only do it for the kids. Or, right, when I was living in Hamburg, we have the Miniature Wonderland, which is this beautiful, ridiculously large model train world, right? So every time friends came along with kids, I said, great, they have to see the Miniature Wonderland, because I wanted to see the Miniature Wonderland. That gave me a perfect excuse to go there again. And game rules, right? Game rules are beautiful constraints that give you plausible deniability, right? I didn't want to touch you there, right? It was the Twister rules. I had to put the hand, sorry, right? Okay, rules bring me right to the next principle or pattern. Better constraints make better participatory experiences, as Nina Simon put it. Right? She explains it and says, if you give people just open self-expression, museum, what did you like about this museum? Blank page of paper. Right? She says open-ended self-expression requires self-directed creativity, and that's hard. You have to think about something, and then you have to execute it to your own quality standards. That's very hard work. A lot of people don't do that. And I agree with that, but I think it's also not just hard work. As we've seen, it also puts your full self on the line, right? Whatever image you choose, whatever topic you choose, however you express yourself through this form, is a full reflection of you as a capable, creative adult. And so therefore, it's this embarrassment to say, oh, what will other people think about me when I put this, right? You have these high quality and anxiety thresholds. So by limiting, by constraining the way you can express, it takes a lot of this pressure from yourself and gives you an easier way. One of her favorite examples is this at a Science Museum exhibit in Ontario about Mars, where they just have the entrance that says, would you go to Mars? And you can go through the yes door or the no door. And you have little social traces of others showing you, how many people have voted yes or no before. And then at the end of the exhibit, you have the same counter again. Now that you know all this stuff about Mars, would you still go to Mars? Right? And again, the yes and the no counter. It's not an open book saying, what do you think about Mars? But it's just this one little act that gives very interesting information back. This is one thing we actually did, me and colleagues, when an online dating site asked us, people are really afraid of writing the first message to another person on an online dating site. How can you reduce that? We said, give people constraints. We basically took a little 1980s board game, Sympathy, where you get 4 random picture cards and a question, right? Where would you most like to do your holidays? Or who would you be most or least likely to marry? And then you secretly order the pictures in, first to least likely. And then the others guess that. And we said, have that as the inviting message. Suggest people pictures and a question, they create the order, and then have the other, just send that out at the first contact message. Because it expresses you, and it's a lot of talking opportunities, but it doesn't put your full self on the line as just a blank, empty, entry field would. Okay, last 3 principles. Give me starting points. Constraints are great, but even constraints are sometimes too open for us as adults. So give me a nice, immediate, obvious starting point for what to do. Again, this is an example from the Museum of Play. This is one little thing where you basically form little 10-gram forms where you have different kind of transparent foils with shapes of different things, and then you fill them out with these little transparent things. And when I was talking about, the museum director says, yeah, I found a little trick how this thing gets way more engaging for people. And here's the trick. What he did is he always put 1 transparent foil and 1 piece already on the table. And he said the biggest fight he has is with his museum guards, because when they come around, they always want to keep the place tidy, so they always put all this stuff back in. He says, no, leave it there, right? Because that gives people an opening for engaging with it, right? And again, random forced suggestions are a great starting point, This is why people can do things like play Cards Against Humanity, right? Grandma may pass, but necrophilia will last forever. You always have, the game as the excuse, the rule and the cards excuse. It wasn't me thinking these terrible things, it was the cards that made me, right? And again, you can use traces of others as starting points, like Candy Chang's beautiful installation, Before I Die, right? It gives you this constrained expression space, just a blank line, but then it shows you as a wall all the other stuff that other people have answered that give you an inspiration, give you social proof. Okay, other people have done this, right? And they, as I said, they also give you a nice starting point. Okay. Last 2. Second but last principle, help me speak its true name. There are many fairy tales about, demons and monsters that lose their power over us once we know and speak their true name, like Rumpelstiltskin in English, or Rumpelstilzchen in German, right? And these stories hold a psychological truth, right? When we're children and we are alone or hurting or ashamed, we have no way of distancing ourselves from that emotion, right? The world is hurt, the world is shame, the world is loneliness. But as adults, right, if you think about things like mindfulness training or meditation, by speaking the name of an emotion, we're able to separate it partially from us and saying, this is not me, this is not the world, this is embarrassment, and it's a fleeting moment, it's this emotion, I understand why it's there. This does not have to determine what I do. Right. It's basically what Woody Allen does in every single Woody Allen film. Oh my God, and now I'm so embarrassed about doing that, and now I feel embarrassed about telling you that I'm embarrassed. But it actually helps relieving you that. And as you speak its name, the last and final principle is you share the feeling with others, right? If the root of embarrassment is the fear of a loss of social connection, right, the others leave me because they devalue me, then sharing that isolating experience or fear and have it reciprocated by others and accepted by others and saying others, I feel the same, we're actually the same here, right, establishes a stronger social bond and thus dissolves the root cause of embarrassment. And I think this is one of the reasons why, people sometimes enjoy embarrassing themselves so much that they actively seek that out, as in the case of karaoke, right? Why on earth would you go in front of your friends, and I can't sing, but then I sing loud and fully out of my breast. Why do you do that? And I think the answer is this. It's this sharing this moment, because as you're doing that, as you're stepping in front there, you're basically like dogs playing, and like the dog, showing your belly or your throat, you're saying, I'm exposing myself. I'm making myself vulnerable here, and thus I give a trust signal that I trust you not to exploit that, not to hurt me. And as the others don't exploit that, as they cheer you on instead of ridiculing you, and then themselves step in the ring, they reciprocate that trust and show, yeah, and I'm here with you. Right? I'm like you are. We are forming this bond. So to summarize, to get to the end, I would go back to the beginning and to the confessions. Right? As I told you, this is for me still one of the most embarrassing situations to sit in the audience, the most anxiety-inducing situations to go, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. But the truth is, it's about just as embarrassing to stand up here. Right? It's about just as anxiety-inducing to go, oh my God, I'm doing this. What are these people thinking about me? Right? Do they think I'm complete, jerks or make a fool of myself? And the problem is these organizers have asked me to practice what I preach and do a participatory activity. I've never done that before, actually, in a talk. So, right, this is me right now going, right, me right here. So I would like you to help me overcome this really, really awkward situation for myself and that embarrassment-inducing situation by a little game of thumb wrestling. And not just thumb wrestling, but actually massively multiplayer thumb wrestling. A little game invented by Monochrome, an Austrian activity group, right? Basically where you can thumb wrestle with 4 people, you can thumb wrestle with 12 people, you can thumb wrestle with a lot of people in different chains, right? You can get really crazy and inventive with thumb wrestling. And as I said, right, to practice what I preach, to make this the most unembarrassing thumb wrestling ever, I invented the official, ultimate, non-embarrassing, massively multiplayer thumb wrestling rules. Hopefully they work. Let's see. Okay. First thing, always practice safe thumbing. Okay. Warm up before you wrestle. First rule, frame the situation. So as I said, right, this is a little game of thumb wrestling and reverse the situation. Okay. The point of this is to feel as embarrassed as possible. Okay. Give me an alibi. Okay, so you're doing this for me, right? This is, continue thumbing. This is for helping me overcome my own anxiety here, right? You're not just doing this for me. You're not just doing this for you. You're doing this for me. Okay, model the behavior. Rebecca, could I ask you up? And Johanna, could I ask you up? Okay, obviously we have to model the behavior now because a lot of you might not know what thumb wrestling is. So first we start with a little 2. You can continue twiddling. Yeah, and remember to be embarrassed, right? Don't forget that. Okay. So we hold this, and the idea with thumb wrestling is basically 3, 2, 1, and you try to pin the other person's thumb down. Gotcha. Wonderful. So this is 2-player thumb wrestling. Continue twiddling. Unless you already, feel a thumb wrestling urge in you and you want to burst into some spontaneous wrestling, then just, find somebody and do that and start wrestling if you want to just pick somebody in the crowd. Well, we're now showing to you the famous 3-player wrestle. So, right, this is how it works. And you see, you can do a 4-player, 5-player, 3-player. Okay, 3, 2, 1, wrestle. Excellent. Okay. Simple one. Wonderful. Now, please continue thumbing as well, right, as you're going through this. Okay, now that we've gone through model the behavior, absorb my attention. So have some music so you're a bit, distracted. Continue thumbing. And something for you to look at so that you don't think about the audience. You just, think about it. Continue thumbing. Be embarrassed. Remember to be embarrassed. Okay. give me starting points. Okay, there are some facilitators here in the room that have graciously declared themselves to help. Could you please, stand up, come along to the rows, distribute yourself among the rows. So these are your kind guys to thumb wrestling that will help you form constellations among yourself. You can also burst out in thumb wrestling already if you want to. You don't need to, it's all fine. Okay, give me constraints. Here are now the rules for thumb wrestling. One of the most embarrassing moments in these kinds of situations is picking somebody, right? If you think about the mingling situations, you were standing there and you were going, what if I pick that person and he averts his eye and then I am rejected, right? That's a terrible, terrible, terrible situation. So what we basically do is we start from the right and work to the left, and just everybody sitting on the outermost right? You just take your left arm and you just grab to the next person to the left of you, right? If you're sitting there, you're going like this. Next person to you, grab and start a thumb, and then just continue through the rows to form a chain. So it was not your choice, right? I made you do this. I made you pick that person. So you pick that person, you pick that person, and then you continue on, you pick that person, and so on. So now form your little thumb combinations. Just form little thumbing chains. If this doesn't work, it's not your fault, okay? It's the fault of the facilitators. This is our fault. Wonderful. Okay. Okay. This is wonderful. A wonderful moment of thumbing. Great. Okay. Great. Now to help you feel unseen. Beautiful. To help you feel unseen, can we please lower the light? Lower the light in the room. Excellent. Okay. Now you completely feel unseen. You can safely thumb and nobody will notice. Nobody will see what you're doing. Speak its true name. Tell everybody how embarrassed you are about doing this. This is a terrible situation, right? Okay, and finally, share the situation, share the feeling, join in a beautiful thumb wrestling, form new combinations, try to win out. Remember to be embarrassed. Excellent. Thank you all so much.